Hey there, and thanks for stopping by to check out my channel. Now, if you're into practical precision rifle, then stick around. We're going to be covering one of the most valuable accessories that's available to you right now, and that's going to be the weapon-mounted laser rangefinder. Now, as you saw in the title of this video, we're going to be comparing three models. So we've got the Vortex Impact 4000, which is already on the market. Price point of, say, $1,500 to $2,000. It's hard for me to tell. I get a lot of different quotes on this one. Tangoinnos Fire 4000. This is going to be on the market, say, for about $1,400, or at least that's where it has been. And then a new one that's coming to the market here in the Maztech X4. This is the 2K model, and it's going to be hitting the market at about $2,200. Not released at the time of filming here, but coming very soon. Now, if you're not familiar with weapon-mounted laser rangefinders, quickly and at a high level, what they're going to do, mount to your rifle, say on a diving board here on top of this one, and then from the rifle, you're going to be able to point at a target, range it, so you get a distance to that target. But then each of these units have a ballistic solver in them. So when you get that range, they're going to go ahead and give you the correct holdover for the bullet that you're shooting at the velocity that you're running. These are also going to give you the ability to input wind data. So while you're on a windy day, you can put in the mile an hour in the direction, and these will give you an output of windage. Now, these all accomplish the same task. These are all at decently affordable prices. And I say affordable, understand that's debatable. I'm saying affordable because in the $2,000 ballpark is very much within reach of many of us that are shooting practical precision rifles for fun, NRL matches, team sniper matches, etc. Understand $2,000 is still a lot. But you think about other models of these, Wilcox Raptors, Mars, etc. They're $10,000 to $12,000. So they're well beyond reach of the average shooter. So these three that are right here, these are coming, or they're on the market right now. They are affordable and they are very much in use. If you shoot a practical match, I guarantee you've seen the Impact 4000 in use, as well as the Fire 4000, and the Maztech will be coming very soon. So in this video, what we're going to do is take a look at each of these units side by side to give you an idea of the pros and cons of each. Spoiler alert, I came into this video thinking one of these was just going to be the best. It was going to be the one that I would come to you and say, go buy this one, or this is my favorite XYZ. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So I've already filmed everything out here, I've already shot. And what I found is these each have pros, these each have cons, and you're going to have to understand what you're trying to do with each of these units to figure out which one might make the most sense for you. So in this video, we're going to take a look at things such as form factor, calibrations, zeroing process, return to zero, ranging capabilities, the ballistic solver and the apps that go with each of these units. I've already mentioned price. By the end of this video, if you're in the market for one of these, you're going to have a very good understanding of how they stack up and what makes each of these unique and valuable for you. So I hope you'll stick around. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about each of the units here. Are you already running one of these, and what's your experience been? Definitely, as I work through my experience with each of these, I'd love to hear from you so that we can chat down below. Now, before we go further, I've got to ask for your help. I'm on a mission to get to 100,000 subscribers. Channel has seen a ton of growth recently, and I appreciate each and every one of you that has stepped up to subscribe and watch my videos. The support doesn't go unnoticed. If you're watching this video and you're not subscribed, go ahead and do me a solid. Hit that subscribe button so that you're in line for my next video drop. Now, from here, let's go through a quick gear review of what each of these are, the rifle that I'm going to shoot them on. So this video is going to be more kind of talking with B-roll than it is shooting. So I'm going to talk about each of the different points that I mentioned earlier. I'm going to roll in B-roll or cut to a clip where I filmed that earlier, just to give you a look. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to wrap up with certainly a high-level pros and cons of each of these. So with that, what rifle are we running? So the rifle platform that I'm shooting here in the video is going to be my Knights Armament SR25. So it's going to be a Knights Armament SR25 lower with the Geissele SDE 2-stage trigger in it. Beautiful trigger, flat trigger bow, makes it very easy to shoot for precision. And then the upper is just going to be a factory Knights Armament 6.5 Creedmoor with a 22-inch barrel. This is 1 7.5-inch twist with the Knights Armament CRS PRG suppressor, I believe this is. So this is the kind of full-size reduced back pressure can. I actually love this can. It sounds great. It does reduce the back pressure. To me, this is just a really easy and very capable rifle to shoot out to distance. You can see this one actually is equipped with the D. Wilson. He's got his new ARCA adapters for the URX6 rail. This thing is super clean in that the ARCA is integrated into the handguard, so it's very comfortable to hold. It's not something that's additional down below that's super awkward. Bipod will be the MDT single pole sky pod, and this is going to be running the PR Shooting Solutions pod knobs. So these pod knobs, they replace the factory knobs. They're just a little bit easier to get on here, to deploy, and then retract the legs. So optic package on top here will be the Leupold Mark V 5-25 with the Tremor 3 reticle. So this optic was provided to me by Ally Munitions. They've been a long-time supporter of the channel, and I appreciate their support. If you're in the market for premium ammunition or various different pieces of gear or kit that you're after for the shooting world, check out Ally Munitions, because they're probably going to have what you need. And then certainly with a weapon-mounted laser rangefinder, you have to have a solid mount. So the mount I'm using here is going to be the Badger Ordnance, Condition 1, with their Raptor rail or Picatinny rail diving board up top here. So from what I find, this is a very solid solution. On this side of the rifle, you can see I'm actually going to be running their anti-cant level as well as their data board. Now, ammo we're going to be running in this video, I'm going to go to a longtime supporter here. That's going to be from Sierra. So Sierra sent out a number of the 144 SMK bullets. So I wanted to try the 144s in the 7.5-inch twist barrel. I'm going to be running this rifle in a match next weekend there in Kentucky. It's going to be a team sniper match. So I wanted to come out and just get some data on how the rifle is shooting. So that 144 SMK load, I put that over Staball 6.5 powder, and I ran it through my Dillon press. So I have a Dillon 550 that Dillon sent out. And I tell you what, for gas gun ammunition like this, that Dillon 550 progressive press has made my life so much better. I'm able to crank out hand loads so much faster than the old single stage press. So what you're going to see in this video, 100-yard groups, get an idea of the velocity there, and then we're going to push out to distance. But again, this video is less about the shooting and more about the laser comparison. Now, if you're interested in any of the gear that I've mentioned here, or maybe you want to go over and learn more about the different products that I mentioned, check out my campsite bio, and in there you're going to have connections to all of my partner companies. So in some cases, you'll get yourself a discount. There's various different discount codes mentioned there if you want to save some money. And some of those links will actually give me a small kickback that I use to help grow this channel. Now with that, let's get into the lasers. So first up, let's talk about kind of the form factor of each of these lasers. So I'm going to roll a clip in here where I put all three of these lasers on the same Picatinny rail there on my new HM Defense 50 BMG. Now first up, we got to give a shout out. Take a look at that wall. So that hold up displays wall is holding that HM Defense 50 BMG. That thing's 30 pounds and it's hanging on the wall, no problem. But the point of that clip there is just to give you a look at how each of these three lasers look on the same Picatinny rail from a height perspective. So what you're going to see on there is the form factor on them is very, very different. So when I hold the three of these in my hand, it's a little bit challenging, but what I notice, especially when they're on the same rail, this Vortex Impact 4000 is chunky. It is a very tall laser. So tall, actually, some places such as Badger Ordnance actually designed specific rails down lower on the diving board so they don't stick up as tall. This is a chunky unit. Now, as far as, say, weight, again, you can look up the weight specs. To me, they feel about the same. I mean, maybe the Maztech feels a little bit lighter, but really weight-wise is about the same. The big things that I notice, the Impact 4000 is chunky and very tall. So think about trying to put this into a safe, or maybe you're shooting through various different barricades where the laser's up top. That extra height can be a pain. So if you want something that's a little bit tighter on the rail, that's where the Maztech and the Fire 4000 are going to be an advantage. So these two are much shorter on the rail. Now with that, there's another thing that I noticed here. Actually, when I tried to mount the Maztech onto the Badger rail for the Impact 4000, and what I noticed there is the footprint on the Maztech, if I hold this correctly, you can see it's very long in the tail. So you can see the mounting screws are here and here, and then the tail is very long. Now, really, on a rail such as this Badger here, where it's quite long and it's quite tall, doesn't really matter. This Maztech is going to fill that full rail. But say you have a shorter rail that's closer down to the scope, it's not as long, where this is going to be pushed back, the tail of this can actually impact your elevation turret. So the footprint on this, while it's shorter, it is long. So I actually measured this. From the front mounting screw to the tail is 4.7 inches. So that 4.7 inches, you might check your rig and make sure you have the space to run this. So if not, you're going to have to get a different rail or potentially a different unit. The Fire 4000 might be the best of both worlds. It's a little bit shorter, and you can see the footprint is very centered up. So the mounting screws on these are very centered up. It sits very centered up in the rail. So from a form factor, there definitely are some differences there to keep in mind. If you're not worried about the size or the height, then Impact 4000 might be fine. The tail on the Maztech might be fine. You may not be concerned about it. The next thing to talk about for me is calibrations. There are some major differences here. So first up, let's talk about the Impact 4000. So the Impact 4000 has a calibration process. So you're going to navigate into the screen here. It's going to tell you what to do. You're going to do things such as wave it around in a figure 8 like this. You're going to twist the unit around like this. You're going to flip it over and go like this. Honestly, the calibration process on this unit is a pain, and it doesn't actually work on mine anymore. So I've had this unit now for a couple of years. I should mention this Impact 4000 was provided to me by Ally Munitions at a discounted price. I got this when these first released, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago now, at a discounted price. So I've had it for a while, but the calibration process on this seems to no longer work. Doesn't really seem to be an issue. I'm still shooting it and the data seems to work just fine. The windage seems to work just fine. I'm not actually sure what the calibration is for. Mine doesn't work. If you're concerned about that, yeah, this process of spinning it over and flipping it like this, you're supposed to do it anytime you move within 5 miles or something. It's, oh, you go like this also. It's a pain. So calibration, thumbs down on the Impact 4000. The new Maztech has a calibration process, much easier actually. So the Maztech, when you turn it on, at the top of the screen here is going to be a compass. It's going to give you a 1, 2, or 3 out of 3 or 0, and that's going to be your calibration process. So all you do to calibrate this is hold it upside down like this until the number changes, hold it right side up like this until the number changes, and then you spin it around like this in one circle, and then boom, mine has already calibrated. So the calibration process on this one is much simpler, and that's for your compass. Now it's worth noting, this is a demo unit from Maztech. They sent this out to me. It's on loan for video creation. This also has a compass calibration issue. Understand it is not working correctly, so I've made Maztech aware. We've talked about getting this unit replaced. The way this is designed, this calibration should only be required when you remove the battery and replace it. Mine is currently requiring a calibration every single time that the screen blacks and turns back on. So understand that's an error with my specific unit, but I do want to mention it. Understand the design of this will actually be much more convenient and that you only do the calibration once when you replace batteries. Now, the last unit with regards to calibrations will be the Fire 4000. If you don't want calibrations, this is your unit. There are no calibrations on the Fire 4000. You mount it up, you zero it, and you go run. So I like the fact that there's no calibrations in this unit. I'm okay with the calibration process in the Maztech, and I find the calibration process in the Impact 4000 outdated and annoying. I do need to mention actually the Fire 4000 was provided to me by Tangoinnos, so this unit was free to me. It is a demo unit for content creation, but I don't have any money invested in this unit. Now with that, let's move into the next topic. Next up, let's talk about the zeroing process and the return to zero process. So the way you zero a weapon-mounted laser rangefinder, if you're not familiar, you zero your scope first. So I did that today at the 100-yard line. Again, I'm shooting this rifle to get data. So what I did, I fired a 10-round group at 100 yards, and you can see all 10 of those rounds landed right on top of the orange dot. Beautiful group, measures 0.9 MOA. So I'm happy with that, rifle shooting well, zero out my turrets, perfect, rifle is zeroed. Now, when you put your weapon-mounted laser rangefinder on top of the rifle, it's going to sit here on the diving board like so, just like that. What you want to do is zero the laser beam, which is going to be straight, to the line of sight of your optic. You want them to be parallel. So at 100 yards, what I'll do is measure the distance from the laser to the center of the scope. In this example, it should be about 3 inches. I know 1 mil at 100 yards is 3.6 inches. So if I do 3 divided by 3.6, that's 0.8. So when I'm zeroing at a 100-yard line, I'll put the visible laser beam, all these have visible lasers, 0.8 mils above the center crosshair in my scope. It's a super simple process. Once you zero it, then when you go out to distance, if your elevation turret is on 0, you just point your crosshair at the target and range it. So that's the process. Now, how do you actually do it? First, let's talk about the Maztech. So the Maztech zeroing process, I actually really like it. So on the back of the Maztech, you have a control knob right here, which is going to allow you to choose things such as ranging mode, visible laser. There's a illuminator, or not an illuminator, a pointer for IR functions with night vision, and you just click this twister here. Maybe you want to turn it off. You don't want any kind of shake to wake. So let me just go over to visible laser. So there's the visible laser button. And then the control buttons on top here are amazing on this unit. So the laser button is actually going to be the left one here. So if I click the left one, now I can see my visible laser. If I double tap it, now my visible laser is on. There we go. Stays on. You're going to shine that visible laser downrange. Say today was full sunshine, so I put a license plate down there which is very reflective. If you don't have something reflective, you're not going to see the laser in full daytime. If you get into dusk or cloud cover, maybe. You see that visible laser, you're then going to align it to your crosshair using the elevation screw here and the windage screw here. So really like the setup here, especially as a right-handed shooter, because when I'm on the gun, I can get up on top for the elevation, and the windage screw is where my line of sight is, so I'm able to adjust this easily. On the other units, such as the Impact 4000, the windage screw is here on the side, and the Fire 4000 also on the right-hand side. So as a right-handed shooter, it's not that easy to see that screw and make the adjustment. So not the end of the world, but it is kind of a pain. Now from a function standpoint, I do want to mention I prefer how this unit and the Fire 4000 behave with regards to the visible laser. So the Fire 4000 for the visible laser, you have a button right here. You just tap that, boom, vis laser on, off, super simple. The Maztech, as I mentioned, you click the clicker over to visible laser and then you engage it here with the left button. Very easy. The Impact 4000, to get to your visible laser, you have to navigate full menu here. Go over to visible laser, turn it on, do your thing, navigate out of the menu. It's kind of a pain to access the visible laser in this unit. I do like that you can shut the visible laser off on this unit, lock it out, but the process of getting to it is a pain. So with regards to zeroing at 100 yards, I would give the advantage to the Maztech for the combination of the left-hand windage and the ability to easily engage the visible laser. Or this would be your IR laser if you had your dial switched to that after dark. So I like that. On these two units, really nothing wrong with them. I would rate the Fire 4000 next because you can just click the visible laser on and off. I don't like the right-handed windage knob. And then the Impact 4000, I would put it most cumbersome to zero because of the menu to get to the vis laser and then the right-hand side. Now the next thing I want to talk about will be the actual, say, functionality of the lasers. So with regards to functionalities of the lasers, what I'm referring to would be the switches on the back. So the Maztech is going to be unique, and then it has this switch on the back of the unit, and I like that. You can definitely turn this unit off, very positive. You can flip it up to range, very positive. You can quickly identify what mode you're in, so I like the switch. I like the top of the unit in that you have these little fences around each of the different buttons. So when you're behind the rifle, you can reach up and feel what button you're on top of. Makes it easy to understand. So the ranging button on this unit is the right-hand button. So when you're pointed at a target, you hit the right-hand button, and it's going to range for you. Makes it very simple by feel. The other units are a little bit more tricky. So the Impact 4000, for example, you have rubber buttons on top. They all have little raised kind of nipples on them, which is great because you can reach up and you can feel, oh, I'm on a button. But because they're all so close together and they all have a raised kind of little nipple on them, you don't know which button you're on. So many times in the time that I've owned this unit, I have hit the wrong button from behind the rifle. And same thing on the Fire 4000. So the Fire 4000, there's no hard switch. It's just these buttons up here. So I like the Fire 4000 in that it's simple. This is a very easy unit to learn to use. But all these buttons up here, when I run my finger across them, there is no separation. So when I'm behind the rifle, I don't know if I'm on the ranging button or if I'm hitting something else. Now one of my buddies gave me a great idea to put a piece of Velcro here, and you can positively feel that under your finger, but as you can see, it fell off of mine. So with regards to, say, ranging and buttons, I'm going to give the edge to the Maztech. I like the switch on the Maztech. I like the fences around the buttons. It makes it very easy to get on from behind the rifle. Each of these have remotes. I don't run remotes because I'm constantly moving these between rifles for content. So for the use that I use, advantage to Maztech. The other two, I would say, are a tie behind the Maztech. Next up, let's talk about maybe the learning curve before I move back into the return to zero. So the learning curve on each of these units. What I mean by that is learning to use them. So I would say the easiest unit to learn to use is the Fire 4000. So the Fire 4000, you just have a handful of buttons here on top. Things like visible laser on and off, toggle between meters and yards, range button. There's an internal and external ballistic solver. And then all your data on this unit comes out of an app. So pretty simple to learn to use. The other two units, next up will be the Impact 4000. You have a number of buttons. You have settings, you have wind, which is great, and we're going to talk about that separately. And then you have a screen full of menus. So this one took me a while to learn how to use. Once you get it, it's not hard. The thing I like about this unit, you don't need an app. You can completely and 100% run this unit without an app, which is what I've done. I've never used the app on this unit, and I like that. So advantage Impact 4000 for not requiring the app. The apps are nice until you don't have access to it, phone goes dead, won't pair, whatever. Advantage to this one because I don't actually need the app. The Maztech, I would say it's kind of maybe almost more tricky to me. So the Maztech, you got the switch here. There's a couple of different modes. I definitely read the operator's manual on this one. This one does have an app that you pair through it. This one does have kind of a main menu button here in the center. You can use that to toggle between your main heads-up display with your firing solution, a secondary screen which is going to give you what rifle and load you're shooting, which is great. This is also where you're going to go into the unit and adjust windage, which I love, windage on the unit. But then behind that, if you press and hold, now you get into a full menu where you can toggle between different rifles, different bullets, which is awesome. You can get into different display settings. You can get into Bluetooth settings for pairing. There are just a ton of different settings in this unit. A little bit of a learning curve. Not hard. Again, kind of like the Impact 4000. Once you use it, cool. You've got it. On the topic of learning curves, I've got to cut in here because since I filmed this video, I've actually learned something new I need to share with you. And that's around the Maztech's ability to actually enter rifle and bullet information through the unit. So at the time of filming, I was under the impression that only the Vortex Impact 4000 would allow you to enter data directly into the unit without an app. Turns out that's actually incorrect. So what I've learned, the Maztech, you can actually do the exact same thing. So right there on the unit, without an app, you can go in and enter your rifle details as well as your bullet details directly into the unit. So no app required. For me, I see that as a pretty huge positive. You know, you think about times where you can't use your phone and you want to manually input information into the unit. Well, just like the Impact 4000, you can do that with the Maztech. Now, the cool thing about the Maztech, actually, if you look at the top of the unit, there are fewer buttons. So there's only 3 buttons on the top there, so you kind of have a sequence of tapping and double tapping, and then left and right buttons to enter the data. So sure, it might be a little bit cumbersome, but I learned you actually can enter data manually right into the unit without an app on the Maztech. So chalk that up as a win for the Maztech and something I've learned since using these units. Let's talk return to zero. So you get the unit zeroed, you bring that visible laser down where you want it. Then in the video here with each unit, I went out and fired 15 rounds. I fired 10 rounds prone at 1,000 yards just to kind of check my data. And then 5 rounds off of the tripod at about 850 yards. And then I moved back up to the 100-yard line to check zero shift. So if these things don't hold zero, they're of no value. The results I saw were pretty surprising. So for zero shift, let's just talk about what I felt like was the best unit. It would be this Maztech. So I felt like the Maztech at the 100-yard line, I don't think I saw any shift. Now you can just take a look through the clips that we're going to input here and let me know what you think. But I don't think I saw any shift after the 15 rounds fired. I also really like the Maztech because it has a very defined clicks in the windage and elevation knob, so that's a win. The return to zero or the zero hold after rounds fired seemed to be a win. Remove this unit, reinstall it. From what I saw, it went back perfectly, returned to zero. That was a win. Let's talk about maybe the Fire 4000 next. So the Fire 4000, this one in the windage and the elevation knobs, mush, no clicks. I didn't feel any clicks in this unit. Fine, you can still get it zeroed. There's just not defined clicks like there are in the Maztech. After the 15 rounds fired, came back up to 100 yards, and I felt like this thing held zero perfectly. This is where things change for the Fire 4000. Remove that unit, reinstall it on the rifle, and I believe I experienced a significant zero shift. You're going to see there in that footage, a couple of inches at 100 yards. In my opinion, that would require re-zeroing to be confident in this unit. End of the world, no, but if you're shooting a match and who knows, this thing comes off or whatever, if you take it off and move it around, oh, maybe to fit it into a case actually, which is very realistic for my setups, it needs to return to zero. The Impact 4000, how did it fare? Well, the Impact 4000, this one was interesting. So 0 to 100 yards, there are light clicks in this. Go out and shoot, and I came back up to the 100-yard line, and I believe I saw a slight shift in the 0. So even 15 rounds of 6.5 Creedmoor, slight 0 shift, that's not good. So 15 rounds moved it a couple of tenths. Again, let me know in the comments what you saw. I felt like there was movement there. Now the interesting, remove this unit and reinstall it. I do believe it did return to that same point. So while there might have been a small shift in the 0 of this unit while shooting, it did seem to return to 0 when you reinstalled it. Now here's something wild. So at the 100-yard line, I had wrapped up the video and I'm reinstalling this unit, zeroing it to see how far I can laze with it. I found something nuts. So in this elevation knob, I'm using my screwdriver to adjust. I'm looking through the scope and I realized when I turned my screwdriver, elevation wasn't changing. Then I realized if I put pressure up and down on this with the screwdriver, there was significant movement in the visible laser. Then I realized I could actually take my finger and push up and down on this and make a significant change. I also realized if I grabbed a hold of the unit, twisted it, pushed it up and down, there was movement in the unit. Now I don't know if that movement comes out of the diving board or the mount here, but I did notice there's movement in the actual elevation zeroing mechanism of this Impact 4000. I assume it's spring loaded. I hope that it returns. Maybe that explains why I saw a slight shift in my 0. I felt like these were all torqued very well. The fact that you can move all of these, hold that thought. This one, there was a little bit of movement when I grabbed a hold of it. The Fire 4000, when I ran the same test, I pushed up and down on the elevation and the windage chart, no movement. So really impressed actually, while these are mushy and no clicks, they didn't move under pressure, so I like that. Grab a hold of this unit, twist it, push it forward and back, a little bit of movement. So about the same as the Impact 4000, that's probably just normal. Now the Maztech, interesting results here. So with the Maztech, what I saw, a little bit of movement here in the elevation turret with pressure. So nothing like the Impact 4000, maybe a couple of tenths is what I saw. I didn't seem to see anything in the windage. But what I saw was a lot of movement in this unit when I pushed forward and back. I'm guessing that's because of the long body here. But when I pushed side to side, up and down, I noticed a lot of movement in this unit. So while this unit held 0 and returned to 0 very well, it did seem like there was some movement in the mount, a little bit here in the mechanism. But really the most shocking was the amount of movement in the elevation here of the Impact 4000. You got to let me know in the comments what you think about that. Is that something you're concerned about? Have you experienced issues with it? I guess I'm not sure. I never realized that happened until today. So with that, let's keep going. Let's talk ballistic solvers, onboard weather, and firing solution, or apps. So first up, let's talk about the Impact 4000. So earlier in the video, I mentioned I like the Impact 4000 because really no app required. So this unit is going to be unique from the others in that it uses, I think, geoballistics, which is a different solver. It seems to work. I've had fine results with it. In the video today, when I fired each of these units, I put in the same data. So the load that I'm shooting at the 100-yard line showed an average speed of 2680 feet per second. So I plugged that in. Then before I shot any of the rangefinders, I moved back to 1,000 yards with my rifle, or it actually was 1,070, and fired rounds. Understood my drop out there was 9.9 mils. I then backed into my G7BC of 0.275, which I plugged into each of the 3 units. So I ran the same ballistic input across all units. So 2680 average feet per second, 1.32 inches for the bullet length, 0.275 for the G7BC on the 144 SMK. Unfortunately, the 144 SMK is not in the Applied Ballistics library, but we still made use of it out here today. So geoballistics, a little bit unique. Onboard weather, yes. So you don't have to think about temperature, humidity, any of that kind of stuff. This unit's going to do that for you, and it's going to be in the calculation. And then if you want an app, there is an app. But again, I don't have experience with the app on this unit. I prefer to run it all through the menu right here. Next up, let's talk about the Fire 4000. So the Fire 4000, this unit is also unique in that it does not have onboard weather. So for a ballistic solver, it's going to use Applied Ballistics, which is a great tool. There's a lot of great, maybe fans, very, very effective unit. As you saw today, it seemed to work just fine for me. So Applied Ballistics, thumbs up. Lack of weather. Now that one, when I put out my previous content with this unit, a lot of people are concerned about not having weather. So how do you get weather into this unit? Well, you can pair it with a Kestrel. If you have some kind of external device, you can pair it. But the way I do it is actually use my phone. So with your phone, you can pull in real-time pressure. You can know the temperature. I have a wind meter there in my bag that I use. I think it's a Caldwell Wind Wizard. It also has a thermometer on it. You plug all that into the app. So the Fire 4000 is now using Applied Ballistics Quantum, which is a beautiful app. That's what I used here in this video to load in the firing solution. So while this unit doesn't have onboard weather, you still load weather through the app or by pairing it to a device. So is that a negative for me? Not really. It's just something to be mindful of, especially when you think about the price point on this unit. Maybe you're going to buy this unit at the lower price point, pair it with something like a Kestrel. Now you're in the ballpark of some of the other units. But no weather on board, for me, it's not a deal breaker. Run it through the app. The thing you have to be mindful of if you do that, you have to be cognizant of when the weather changes to update your app. The good news is that Applied Ballistics Quantum app, it's easy to use. So this unit, in order to get data onto it 100%, you have to use the app. There's no way around it. To me, that's kind of a negative. So I like the Impact 4000. It doesn't need an app. This unit 100% requires it. I'm going to give that a negative review or a negative mark because I like the ability to control things on the unit. What if your phone goes down for some reason, right? So app 100%. Applied Ballistics, though, is good. Next up will be the Maztech. So the Maztech, to me, is going to be unique and I believe the best combination of the units. So the Maztech is going to use Applied Ballistics. So the same software that's in the Fire 4000, has a ton of fans, and has a great reputation out there. So Applied Ballistics, thumbs up. This is going to use its own app though. So Maztech has their own app with the firing solution in it. It's very easy to use. You can see some footage here. You're going to input rifle data. So sight height over bore, bullet velocity, G7BC, all the same inputs are going to be in the app. And then you pair it to this unit. I find pairing is very easy. The Bluetooth seems to work quite well. Now the cool thing about this unit, and the reason that I like it above the other two, you actually can control the unit through the screen right here. So you don't have to always use the app. Now this unit also has onboard weather. So that's another reason that I'm going to give it the high mark here in this category. The onboard weather is really, really cool because you load in your ballistic data. You can confirm through the screen what ballistic data you have on the rifle or on the unit. The Fire 4000, the only way you can confirm it is by ranging with the unit and then seeing that in the app. So there's nothing on the screen that says, hey, here's the profile that's loaded, versus the Maztech and the Impact both tell you which profile is loaded. So you can look and see which profile is loaded, and then once it's in there, so you have to load the profile through the app, but once it's in there, you can cycle through your different rifles, through the different bullets. You can change windage, you have your weather on board, you can do all of that through the unit. So again, high mark in that category, onboard weather, easy to use app, but also app is not required. So, all right, let's keep going. Next up, how about we talk about what I'm guessing everyone wants to know. How far can you range with them? Now this one's gonna be pretty interesting. So when you think about ranging performance, the Impact is called the 4000. You got the Fire 4000, and then you've got the 2K LRF. So their names are all 2000 to 4000. Well, shooting out here today, I saw drastically different results. So let's start with maybe the least distance capable. That's going to be the Maztech. So with the Maztech 2K, what I saw for max reliable distance out here on rocks, so they all ranged my target at 1,000 yards. So that's a win. Maybe you're shooting on the East Coast, you're not shooting that far. They're all capable of 1,000+ yards. I can assure you of that. I saw that here in content. But the furthest max distance that I reliably got with the 2K Maztech was about 1,780 to 1,800 yards. Now, note, Maztech's going to be releasing a 15K model that'll just range for forever almost. But this 2K model, at the price point that's in line with these, furthest distance I got on rocks was 1,700 to 1,800 yards. Again, still very usable for probably the majority of shooters that are out there. So that's going to be the shortest contender. Next up will be the Fire 4000. So the Fire 4000, again, 1,000-yard target, no problem. Out here on the rocks today, I was able to get consistent distances out to about 2,100 yards. So 2,100, maybe you're going to try to push out to a mile, do a little bit of ELR type work. Okay, sweet. Fire 4000 is going to work for you. The absolute big dog out here is the Impact 4000. This thing is absolutely nuts. So when I did my initial far distance testing, there's a canyon here, and I got all the way to the back of the canyon at 24, almost 2,500 yards and ran out of canyon, still lasing. Reinstalled this unit and then actually lays back this direction where I hit rocks at 3580, almost 3,600 yards. So if you need absolute max distance, the Impact 4000 is the move. It is the clear winner here when it comes to distance. Twice as far as the Maztech 2K. Again, if you're shooting shorter distances, 1,000 yards, you're an East Coast shooter, maybe you're limited to 1,200 yards and in, all three of these units are going to work for you. Now when it comes to ranging performance though, there's some pretty major differences here to note. And that's going to be how fast you get the firing solution. Something I kind of took for granted until I started using the different rangefinders. So obviously you get down behind the rifle, you point at a target, and you laze it. I almost want instant feedback. I don't want to be sitting there waiting on my rangefinder to laze that target to give me a solution. You think about a match where seconds matter, you're going to notice it with two of these units. So let's talk about lasing performance or time. So again, when I rate the time on these units, I'm going to say the slowest ranger is going to be the Maztech. This one, to me, it feels very slow. It's hard for me to measure the time. I would say a second, maybe 1 to 2 seconds for this thing to laze a target at 800 or 1,000 yards. It's actually so slow that there's actually a message that pops up on the screen and says LRF ranging to tell you that it's ranging. So yeah, if time matters, this one is slow. That's going to be a drawback of this unit. For me, is it a deal breaker? I would say no because of the other pros in the unit, but definitely that is maybe one of the biggest drawbacks that I notice is how slow this unit is. Now, Maztech tells me the 15K model is going to be the fastest on the market, so much faster unit in the 15K, but this 2K to me, it's slow. Now, a win here on the Maztech is going to be what they call haptic feedback. So when it gives you a distance, it's going to buzz, it's going to vibrate, you're going to hear that in the stock. That's a huge win. I love that actually. Next up with this ranging time will be the Impact 4000. I believe the Impact 4000 is going to be between the Maztech and the Fire 4000. This one's slow, but this one feels less slow to me than the Maztech. The drawback on this unit, there is no haptic feedback. There is no buzzing, which I've grown to love actually. So for me, no buzzing, no haptic feedback, that is a major downside to this unit. So you laze a target out there, you're down behind the rifle, this thing's so tall you probably can't see it. You have to actually get up and look to see did it get a range. Versus the other two with the haptic feedback, you know instantly when they get a range because it buzzes. So I love that. To me, that's a must on a laser rangefinder. And then the absolute dominator when it comes to speed, Fire 4000. This thing is nuts how fast it is. I didn't realize how fast this was until I started shooting it with the other units. So this thing, with regards to ranging speed and haptic feedback, Fire 4000. Range a 1,000-yard target, you have a firing solution before you can even look up. And the cool thing is, with the haptic feedback on this unit, bzz, you get that in your stock, you know you got a range. The Vortex, if it doesn't range, you don't know it. The Maztech with the haptic, you know it if it does or not. So if speed and haptic feedback are a must, Fire 4000 is the move. The next category will be firing solution. So out here today, again, this was less about the shooting and more about the rangefinder experience, but the firing solution that I got at 1,000 yards and the 8 to 850 yard line with each of these seemed accurate. For me, it was accurate enough that I could dial in and make those impacts. If I was in a match, I'd be in the ballpark of the target. So firing solution wise, was it perfect for me out here today? No, I actually need to come back out and kind of get this thing fine-tuned before I shoot that match next weekend. But from what I'm seeing, the Applied Ballistics, big fan of that, especially that Quantum app for the Fire 4000. The Maztech app is easy to use. I love the onboard weather of this Maztech, but the firing solutions overall, when you input the same data, came out in the same ballpark. You saw me today have some windage errors. Advantage, windage errors will go to the Maztech and the Impact 4000. So both of these units, you can change wind right on the unit. So the Fire 4000, or the Impact 4000 here is really easy. You have a whole windage screen, pull it up, you have a little compass dial there. I like the windage capability in that one. This one, I like the windage in that it's just a line item for speed and a line item for direction. So that's a win on these two units. Drawback on the Fire 4000, to change the wind, you have to go into the app. That one for me is pretty tough because maybe you're shooting a match and they're out here in the west where you're shooting 270 degrees, but that wind is constant in one direction. You'd be going into your app for every stage to make a change versus these units, you're able to do it on the unit. So firing solution wise and windage wise, I would say the winner would be the Maztech. I appreciate the windage in the Impact 4000, but I'm giving the win to the Maztech because of the Applied Ballistics. The last one before we kind of wrap up will be night vision performance. So all three of these units are going to be, I believe they're 905 nanometer lasers. which means they're all going to be visible under night vision. So if you're ranging at night and you have night vision, these are all going to be visible to night vision. So if that matters to you, be aware of it. When the 15K comes out from Maztech, it's going to be a 1550, and it's not going to be visible to night vision. So sure, I've run all of these now with night vision, and they all work just fine. The Maztech actually has an IR pointer on board, which is cool. Say you're shooting with some buddies or something. IR pointer integrated. It does have a hot shoe here where maybe there's going to be an IR illuminator down the road. I really hope so, because for me, this unit has to have an illuminator if I'm going to shoot it at night. Now, with that, let's wrap up. Okay, I know the video is long. Let's wrap up with just pros and cons of each as these come to my mind. So first up, maybe let's talk about the Impact 4000. So the Impact 4000, we've all known it. We've probably all used it now. This thing's been out there for a long time. That's going to be a pro for me. So the pro for me on the Impact 4000, or one of them, is proven track record. A lot of familiarity there. There's a lot of these out there. They're on the used market. They're very available, and they're priced quite well. So kind of the history and the reach of this unit is a pro. Another pro of this unit is going to be the ranging capability. You saw it absolutely demolish the other two units out here today, doubling the Maztech. So the ranging distance capability is going to be a pro. Another pro to this unit, I love it that you can run it without an app. I like that it's simple. You can navigate it right here on the screen. An app is available, but not required. That's going to be a pro of this unit. Cons for me on this unit, size. This thing is very tall. In my opinion, the newer units that are much slimmer are more desirable, especially if you're going to be storing this in a safe or in a Pelican case or something like that. This thing sticks up super tall. I'm guessing that's just a product of technology getting smaller as time goes on. You know, this being one of the first units, it is large. You know, other cons of this unit, not running the applied ballistics like the other two. The geoballistic solver seems to work, but to me that's a negative that it's geoballistics. Oh, one con I forgot is ability to adjust wind on the unit. That's an absolute must for me. But back to the cons. The cons for me would be, I did see a zero shift out here today, and then being able to push this elevation knob in right here on top and push that visible laser around, I don't like that. I don't know what the deal with that is, but to me that doesn't seem very robust. So again, let me know in the comments what your experience has been there. The other con of this unit, I don't like how these little mounting nuts are up under the plastic. It makes it kind of hard to get a wrench on, or you have to use the special tool that they send out. But kind of this unit, to me, it's functional, it's proven, and it works. But I do believe it's kind of getting dated, so almost like a generation 1. The next unit we'll talk about, let's talk about the Fire 4000. Pros of this unit. Ranging speed. The speed on this is absolutely insane how fast it gives you a firing solution. Another pro of this unit is the applied ballistics. So the solver on this is amazing there in applied ballistics. The applied ballistics quantum app, that's a pro. It's easy to use. I like the footprint of this unit. It's much smaller. And I like the price of this unit. Coming in at $1,400-ish, that's a win. Cons to this unit for me, going to be a couple of them here. I'm going to go ahead and say the lack of onboard weather is a mild con for me. The bigger con for me is not being able to make adjustments to the data on the unit. So requiring the app to make wind adjustments or to make those weather adjustments, unless you're paired with something external, which could also be a con in that it increases the cost. Not being able to make adjustments on the unit, I'm going to put into the con category. Another con for me on this unit is going to be the buttons on top all run together. There's no difference here in feel. You put your finger up there, you're on a button, but you don't know for sure which one you're on. I'm going to give that a negative. A pro for me, though, will be the way that it held zero in the 15 rounds. Seemed to be perfect, but the fact that you can push on these and nothing happened. A negative would be it did seem to zero shift when I removed it and reinstalled it. This unit for me has been good. I've run it now for several months. I ran it in a Precision Rifle Classic Cameo earlier this year. I do kind of like it. Does have a robust feel. It's all metal. I like that. So far, my opinion of this unit has been good. Definitely, though, there are some cons to be aware of. They're not deal breakers for me, but when you compare them to the other units, definitely it is lacking in some of those capabilities. The final unit to talk about here will be the Maztech. So the Maztech, again, definitely not the perfect unit, but from a pro standpoint, I like the kind of military durability build of this unit. So basically, this unit to me has a robust feel. So it's a combination of metal and plastic. I like the switch on the back, so it feels durable. It gives me a hard switch on the back. It gives me fences around the button so I can actually feel them up top. I'm going to give all of those items a pro. It ships with a rechargeable CR123 battery. That's a pro. Also made in America. I'm going to give that a pro. So just the kind of form function of this unit, I'm going to rate in the pro category. The other pro category of this unit is the applied ballistic solver. I like that. I like the ability to control the unit on the unit. So yes, an app is required to load the solver, load the rifle, load the ammo. I get that and I can work with that. Once you're in it though, you can control the unit. You can adjust the windage on the unit. To me, that is a win. The other thing I really like about this unit, and I didn't mention it so far in the video, but it's going to real-time adjust based on weather. So I like the onboard weather station. I like the fact that when you zero, you go in and lock in the environment. So it captures the environment right then to compare to your environmentals that you're shooting in, say those change throughout the day. Major pro to me. So onboard weather, but also the ability to lock it in and the ability to change windage on the unit are all going to go into the pro category. Now, cons for the unit. This one's definitely not perfect, right? So cons for the unit, the first one I'm going to mention would be the length here from the front screw to the rear. So the first mount I tried to put this on was the Impact 4000 mount for Badger. Wouldn't fit on this scope. The tail of it actually hit the elevation turret. So I'm going to put the length of this as a con. Deal breaker, no, but definitely something to be aware of. Your diving board has to be either tall enough to get up and over your elevation turret or long enough to get in front of it. That's going to be a con. The other negative of this unit, the 2K in particular here, is going to be the ranging time. It's quite slow. So again, in the match, I'm going to be interested to see when I get on the clock and I get down behind the rifle, do I notice the speed of this unit? So unfortunately, I'm going to put the speed of the unit into the con category. You know, the other pro of this unit, I didn't even think about, would be the haptic feedback. That's also a pro of the Fire 4000. But I also like the hot shoe, the ability, hopefully, to integrate an IR illuminator down the road when they get there released. And also another pro in this is how nice the clicks are. This has the nicest clicks of all of these in the elevation and windage adjustment. So I'm going to put that into the pro category. So for me, I think that's going to sum it up. There's a lot of other things, but just at a high level, those are things that I notice. Oh, one other thing I just saw right here I really like would be the iron sights on top of this unit. So you think about trying to rapidly get on a target. This has iron sights on top to help you orient the rifle and then get down into the optic and see it. I have actually found those useful out here today. So with that, let's go ahead and wrap up. If you made it this far, I appreciate you sticking around to watch this video. I hope you found it valuable. Now, I'm not going to wrap up by saying buy this one or buy that one. The point of this video is to give you a look at each of the three and give you the information that you need to make your own decision. These all have their own pros, they all have their own cons. They're each going to excel in different areas. So you definitely need to understand what you're trying to do and then fit the weapon mounted laser rangefinder that's going to best suit your needs. So with that, thanks for watching. I hope you'll stick around to join me in my next video. If you're not subscribed, do me a solid, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and help me get to 100,000.